two things, and you never get between a hippopotamus and her young, and you never get between people and their food. So, on the premise of that, I would just suggest, are there any burning questions? Because there have been some fantastic points raised in these presentations, and I'm sure the speakers would be happy to take them, either formally now from the floor, or perhaps informally later in quiet corners. So, any questions or anybody who would like to direct to any speaker in particular? Richard, over there, if somebody can get a microphone for this gentleman.
Very much. Thank you, Alistair. I'm Richard Corns from the British Council for Offices in London. And my question for the panel is that we've heard a general context from Lee of fairly apocalyptic outlook for the planet. Habiba talked about the resources that tall buildings use. That's been counterbalanced by Mike and Ken on greening of tall buildings and the context in which they sit. My question is a sort of philosophical one. The architecture and design community can build ever taller. There is an insatiable appetite, apparently, for ever taller buildings, with this city just overtaking Taipei. But will we reach a point where the design community will say, you simply can't be green and tall? There is a limit. It can be done in terms of construction, but it simply isn't the right thing to do. What is that?
Okay, who wants to take that one? Lee?
Hello? Hello? Yeah. Are you asking a question in terms of Dubai or generally? Because in Dubai, if you take 3 split seconds, you'll see the amount of building work is going on. And what you must then look at is that 99.99% of those buildings are not green. We've been building at a phenomenal rate now in this country for about the last 5 years. Only recently, within the last 4 months, has the dictate come down that all buildings need to have a certain certification and accreditation from the LEED standpoint. However, there are very, very, very limited buildings at the moment. So your question is valid, but a little premature in terms of, certainly from our experience within the UAE. I think, yes, you're right, my speech was a little bit, a bit sort of a bit dour, but that comes from the premise that governments have to lead the way, and also that we're not building in a single entity here. We're building in the global stage, so that the small percentage, it's a very, very tiny percentage of people who actually are involved in construction and the transport industries, which at the end of the day produce most of the emissions and use most of the materials. There's only a very, very small percentage of people who are actually making any difference at all compared to what's happening in the global context. But I still think from our perspective, we have to be passionate, and certainly from this panel, and certainly knowing Habiba for a little while, she's probably one of the most passionate people within the UAE actually pushing the green agenda. But we have a really, really tough uphill battle here. We can only say that from our standpoint now, where we sit within the UAE and Dubai, that we will do our very best in working on a day-to-day basis to make every building, not just tall buildings, but every building that we actually design and get involved with, to become as super efficient in terms of their energy use as possible. Because the situation, believe it or not, or whether you believe what has sort of been said out there, the situation will actually get worse. So what we have to do is look beyond the next 10 years and the next 20 years, to actually 50 years, to see how our buildings are going to actually respond to the climatic changes that the planet's going to throw up to us. So all I can say is Dubai is still very young in that. We've only just grasped the green agenda. But I think a lot of people, as this conference has probably shown, that people are passionate about it and want to get involved and produce some stuff.
Thank you very much. Ken, would you have anything to add to that?
Well, if we don't have to build, this is probably some travesty to say, we think of council tall buildings, and thus architectural famously. Tall buildings are the most unecological of all building types. And so, if we have to, my contention is that if you have to build tall, then we should make them as humane as possible, as green as possible. Why do tall buildings exist? Tall buildings exist because of land values, and a lot of it has to do with urban growth. Basically, there are several ways to address urban growth, and all cities grow. And so, one way is to push the city boundaries outwards. In other words, to expand the city boundaries so that you can accommodate urban growth. And that's not a desirable thing to do because it means eating into arable land and eating into the greenbelt. The second option is to build satellite cities which are linked to the metropolis or the main hub through mass transit systems, and that's a high energy solution. The third solution, which most city farmers seem to adopt, is to intensify and optimize the land use within existing city boundaries, which means building on brownfield sites and on less densely or less utilized developed utilized sites in the city. And so inevitably the green building, the tall building, whether we like it or not, will be a building form that will be with us for a while, whether we like it or not. Until we have an economically viable alternative, we have to address the issue of designing tall buildings in our cities. And so if we have to build tall buildings in our cities, then we should make them as green as possible and as humane as possible. And so if we don't have to build tall, let's not build tall, but we have to build tall, then we should make them green. But the idea of a totally green tall building is, there's no such thing as a totally green building in the first place, and to make a tall building green is even more difficult than making medium-rise and low-rise building green. And so we really have a long way to go before we have truly green buildings. But if we have to have tall buildings, then make sure they're in the right location, make sure they're the right mix, make sure they are humanely designed, and make sure they are green as much as possible.
Thanks very much for that. There will be a session this afternoon, which I would encourage you all to come to, which will demonstrate that there is emerging evidence from around the world that there is economic viability attached to sustainable design. And that is not just a trick of words, it's been a proven fact. And that is one of these things that gets this virtuous cycle actually going. Are there any more questions for the speakers from this morning's session? Anybody else got a point that they would like to raise? Going, gone. Thank you very much indeed. It's been a great audience. I'd like to just ask you to please put your hands together once more for